Reb Beach, and I want to thank you for buying this video. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to try some different stuff on this thing. I decided to bring the camera into my own home rather than going into a studio or something, and show you how I record, show you how I get my sound. We're going to go and look at my amps. We're going to look at my recording techniques. We're going to look at some live stuff. I'm going to show you my guitars. So let's start there. I've got a guitar right here that is my favorite guitar. It's my Sir from 1986. I think I bought it in New York City. And John Sir was the master builder at Fender for about 4 years. And these guitars are flawless. I love my Sir guitars so much. And you can actually buy them now. John has made a Reb Beach model which is made to these specs. And I'll show you them in a minute here, but I'll start with this guitar. This is the one that I bought in '86, and I used it on everything that I did with Winger and Dokken, and this has always been my main guitar. It's a solid piece of koa. It has stainless steel frets, so they last a really long time. And the action is really great, and it's a big fat sound. I like the really hard wood. I know I've said in my other instructional video that these woods just are so solid that they just don't go out of tune, which is a really great thing. But let me show you. You can actually buy this guitar. I'll show you the version that I have. I have a bunch of these Sir guitars now because they're just my favorite. Here we go. I'll plug her in. Yeah, there you go. It's just, it's exotic wood. It fits your body really nice. It's kind of like on a smaller scale, I think, than a regular Strat. And so this is what you can get from Sir guitars. You can get this model, which is a koa top, a mahogany back, which gives a lot of depth, bass kind of sound, and a Pal Pharaoh neck, which is a very, very dense wood and helps to keep the guitar in tune. It doesn't move around a lot, it doesn't change with the weather and go out of tune like a lot of necks do. And then I have other guitars. Then we have my Voyager, which you may remember from the Winger days. This is a guitar that obviously I used a lot of ideas from the Sir guitar to design this guitar. When it comes to the woods. But when you talk about the shape, I wrote that on a napkin on an airplane when I was pretty drunk, and it actually. It's kind of a takeoff on a Steinberger guitar, and what I did was I took the wood that I cut out of the back and kind of stuck it on the front here. And when I designed this guitar, Ivan has said to me, you can't have horns that are this long because it'll break off. And I said, make the horns that long. They said, we can't do it. And then it broke off. So Ivan was right about that. This is a great sounding guitar. It's a really thick piece of wood. I use this for anything that needs, really ballsy sound. This thing has a lot of low end, and I like that. I just like the way it feels too. It kind of looks cool. I like the old Voyager. You can still buy these as well, pretty much on eBay. But, what else we got here? We got the first Reb Beach model we did with Sir, which is kind of flashy, and Sir guitars are, a lot of times flashy, and I don't know, I like flashy guitars, but I also, I like an old beat-up guitar too. It's just something about having a mirror is really cool when you're on stage and there's a light up on you. You can flash it at people. I kind of like that, and I just like this design of the mirror. We tried a new pickup configuration that's really cool with these switches here. It's much different than just the normal 5-way. And I like it because you can turn the rhythm pickups off, and if you just want the rock sound, all you have to do is go like that. And you can dial in the rhythm sound that you want and go right to it with one hit of the switch. you know what I mean? It's totally amazing. Just sustain. Yeah, so this is kind of a cool guitar. I like this, sir. Then I have these Ibanez Blazers I played with Alice Cooper. And it's when I had the Ibanez endorsement. And actually the Voyager that I showed you earlier stopped selling as well because Winger wasn't doing as, Winger was over at that point. It was in like 94. And Ibanez asked me to play a different guitar, asked me not to play the Voyager. So I said, well, give me a Strat guitar. And they gave me this. This is my ballsiest sounding guitar, believe it or not. It's just a really Stevie Ray Vaughan sounding guitar. I used it on Too High to Fly in the Dokken video, and I really like the sound of this guitar. It's not made as well as my Suhr guitars. It goes out of tune. It's a pain to take care of. The neck moves because it's just cheesy wood, but the thing sounds great, and I use it for any kind of Strat music that I'm doing, any kind of blues stuff. It's perfect for. This is kind of my Strat guitar, and I noticed I got these black things on here. People ask me about this, and they think it's tape. It's actually shrink wrap, and I used to use electrical tape when I was a kid to stick on there, and then it got all gunky. But I put shrink wrap on there because I kind of like the way it looks a little bit, but also I know when I'm playing and I'm just kind of looking up and playing, I know where my fingers are on the whammy bar by where that tape is. You can feel that, okay, I'm coming to the end of the whammy bar. And when you're doing things on the whammy bar that require you to push down or pull up to a certain note, you have to sort of know where your fingers are on there to know how hard to push, to let go and stuff. That kind of stuff. Put my little distortion. If you're going up to a certain note, it's good to know where you are so you can get used to that place. So that's why I have the tape on here. It's actually shrink wrap. In Winger, I used EMG pickups, and it was kind of, I don't know what started me on EMG pickups. I think because they just came with my favorite Suhr guitar that I had. This guitar has pretty unique pickups in the EMGs. They have pole pieces, which you don't usually see, and you get kind of a Strat sound from that, I guess. Maybe that's one of the reasons why this guitar sounds so good. But then I got the Dokken gig, and I found out that with EMGs you cannot do George Lynch. It's just virtually impossible. You have to do all those squeals and squonks and everything, and so you need something like a DiMarzio to get those sounds. And now I use the John Suhr DiMarzio pickup. I guess he has his own model that he kind of modded to make more quiet, I'm sure. And that's what's in my guitars now is the John Suhr DiMarzio. So that's pretty much it with my guitars. I just use guitars with nice exotic woods that have a nice low end sound. And when you go to the music store, plug in to the different guitars that might interest you and listen to the sound. And a lot of times you don't even need to plug in. You can just kind of listen to it just acoustically, and you can tell if it's going to be a good sounding guitar or not, because you can really hear the nuances just without being plugged in. Anyway, so that's it for guitars. Not much more to say in that area. And I'm ready to talk about foot pedals now. Pretty important. And we're just going to move the camera over to the foot pedals, and I'll talk about them. Hi, we're back. Here's the foot pedals. We have my whammy pedal right here. Whammy pedal, I'll show you what that's used for. We have two delays, 1, 2. One's for a long delay, one's for a short delay. We have the Boss Super Overdrive, which I use for distortion. I probably shouldn't use it because all of my low end goes away when I use it, but I still do because I've used it forever. Here's a wah that somebody gave to me telling me that it was Stevie Ray Vaughan's wah, and I seriously don't believe that person, but it still gets a good wah sound, which I will demonstrate soon. Okay. Okay, so the whammy pedal does a couple different things. One thing I like about the whammy pedal is the chorus in it. It's actually called D-tune, and it's kind of a big fat chorus. It's good for that pat traverse, and that's the D-tune. But then if you step through the program, I can do that live and people will be like, what the heck is going on? I kind of like all those weird little noises. And then you've got a delay here. It can be any delay. I have two delays, like I said before. One of them is for a short slap. Kind of for that, Steve Miller kind of thing, that big... Add the wah to that. And you got that sound, which is cool. Then, of course, the Boss Super Overdrive, which I told you is just the worst. I'm not going to tell you to pick one up. It's just something about it. It's really good for the tapping thing. It really adds a lot of sustain, but it does take away from your low end, and maybe one day I'll find a distortion pedal that doesn't, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then there's my long delay, which can also be anything. You want like the cleanest delay that you can find for this, but it's like just kind of keeps going. You know what I mean? Just forever. And so I use that in conjunction with the whammy pedal a lot of times when I'm doing like skews, when you go like this, and then you just do that with the whammy pedal, going an octave down, maybe 2 octaves down. Here's what it sounds like when you add the echo and then whammy down a couple of octaves, like so. Kind of like it's a big explosion, Yeah, we like that. And what else is there? Oh yeah, I've got an AB box right here. It says dirty and clean, and the outputs of all these pedals go into the last output of the whammy pedal. That has a dirty and clean output. I come out of the whammy pedal, which is the last link in the chain, go into the AB pedal, and then it splits into 2 signals which go to a dirty amp and a clean amp. And that's why that AB pedal is there. It's not hooked up right now, but that's the deal. Okay, signal chain, the way these things are going, is just how they're arranged on this board. And for someone who knows the way this should actually be, this is completely wrong. And the reason I've left it this way is because there's something about it that sounds kind of cool to me. And this wah is supposed to be in the end of the chain, and it's not. It's supposed to be after the distortion pedal, or before the distortion pedal rather. Somebody, some guitar tech kind of made it this way, and for some reason, I just like it this way. So I've left it this way. And it goes just like, wah, long echo, distortion, slap echo, and the whammy pedal. The whammy pedal has to be at the end so that you can whammy down or up an octave or 2 octaves all of these effects. It's really cool to whammy down the echo like I did earlier, because that gives you that Tom Schultz explosion thing. So get a long echo, get yourself a whammy pedal, and whammy it down 2 octaves, and you'll get a nice explosion. You're in my house right now, by the way. I'm glad you're here because I can drink Coors Light the whole time I'm shooting my video, which is, good because beer is bottled confidence, even canned confidence. I like to drink beer when I'm playing guitar because playing guitar is a very masculine thing. you know, when you play guitar, you can't wear your guitar here, which I used to do in Winger. And Dokken taught me, you know, Don Dokken, God bless him, said, you got to wear your guitar low. So I had my guitar tech slowly change the length of my strap over a period of a few months until it got down to here. You know, the problem with that is sometimes your belly like sticks out of here, but you know, you just have to like, you know, not drink as much beer when you're touring, which will never happen. So you just, you know, you get more exercise. But anyway, when you're playing, you get down. There's something about guitar, you know. You can't play it up here. Wear it nice and low. Learn how to play it nice and low. Guitar is a masculine thing. Rock guitar, I'm sorry, but it is. And so you have to just hit hard and mean what you're doing, you know. But you probably already knew that. Okay, we've done guitars. I showed you the effects pedals. Now it's time to get to amps, and I'm just going to bring my amps out, and we'll get a nice shot of them so you can check out what's up with them. Okay, so we got the amps pulled out here. As you can see, I've got a couple of older Marshall heads. They're from, I believe, 1976, and I've actually had all the guts taken out of these amps because I lent them to Warrant for the Cherry Pie record, and they never sounded quite the same. So I sent them to my buddy John Sir, who also does amplifiers as well as guitars. And he designed the Bradshaw mod for Marshall amps, and he stuck his mods in both these amplifiers, so they sound almost identical, believe it or not. And one thing that's really important about Marshalls, it's kind of funny. When I first played through a Marshall, it sounded like crap to me, and I couldn't make it sound good. And I remember the first session I ever did was for Fiona, who was on Atlantic Records, and Beau Hill was producing, and they had a Marshall amp there, and I just didn't, you know, I plugged into it, and it sounded horrible, and I didn't know how to make it sound good. And the guitar player with Alice Cooper at the time was in the studio next door, who was Kane Roberts. He was a really muscly guy, you know. And Kane came in and said, look, I'll show you how to do this. You know, I was really nervous. It was my first big-time session. And he basically showed me, you know, just a basic way to make a Marshall sound good. And that was bass on 10, mid on 4, treble on like 6 or 7. And that was kind of it. That really helped a lot, you know. So let's check that out on the controls here. I'm sure you guys know that all the best guitar players use Marshall amps. And a lot of times you can plug into a Marshall and it just doesn't sound that great. So before we do the def knob here, Dan, let's go over to the other knobs here. Okay, you have your presence, your bass, your mid, and your treble. Okay. And then there's the preamp, which is, you know, how much distortion you want on there. When you're cutting rhythm tracks, you want to pull your distortion back to, like, you know, pull your preamp back so it's not, you know, if you put this all the way up, that's too much hair. All that distortion is going to get in the way of your rhythm. It's just too much. So you pull that back to, like, you know, say 4 for rhythms. And it doesn't get in the way of anything. Okay, the master is obviously your volume. The treble, if you put that all the way up to 10 on most Marshall amps, that's way too much. So I pull it back a little bit where that little mark is, right behind 8. Everyone's different, but that's kind of like the best place on this amp. Now the mid-range is really interesting. On a Marshall amp, if you do this all the way, it's way too damn middly. There's way too much mid-range going on there. So you cut that back, and what's going to happen is you're going to get more low end out of your amp. You can even take it back as much as 3 if you want, and you'll get more, you know, chunky bass. Bass is always on 10 on a Marshall. There is no other way to have the bass knob on a Marshall. It should always be on 10, period. Okay, and the reason that I do that. The reason, I want more. I want more from my bass. Do you know what I mean? Just more from the bass. If it went to 11, I would be so happy. But so what I did was I added an extra knob over here, the depth knob. It adds a low end, more than the bass really, because it's a depth knob. It should say depth really, but it says depth. And that's on all my amps, because you got to have that low end thing. That who knows if you can hear that through the camera, but I certainly can, and I love it. I forgot to tell you about the presence knob because depth is so much cooler than presence. But presence, if it's all the way out, if you got it all the way out, it's probably too much. Same thing with the treble knob. Mess around with it until the high end doesn't take your head off, and there you go. Okay, we've got the amps pulled out of the wall here so you can see what's going on. I completely forget what I'm supposed to talk about here. So, Dan, most musicians would be much more incoherent than I'm being today.
That's a good point.
That's true. Alright, here we go. Okay, we've turned the amps around, and I'm going to give you a good look at the back here. It's pretty unique. These amps there's a long history. There's a big story behind these amps. What you've got in the back here, let's do a close-up. You've got an effects send and return, an effects loop, which is impossible to find in an older Marshall amp. They're in the newer Marshall amps, but I gotta tell you, newer Marshall amps don't sound very good to me. I like older Marshall amps. You can take a new amp and have it modded like this one and make it sound pretty good, if you get a good guy like John Suhr. Anyway, I need an effects loop for those times when you need a nice clean wet signal, either echo or reverb. You got to stick it in an effects loop. This is a good one with a send level, so you can control the level going to your effects, so you don't distort it out. Then we've got a slave level out, which is a wonderful feature because if you want to send out a sound out into your effects, some favorite effects you might have in a rack, let's say, like some either Roland or Digitag or something like that. You want to send out just a dry, perfect signal right from your preamp into your effects. Use a slave out. Here's the volume for it. It's a great feature. Then something that's really unique is a power amp presence. It's a lot like the presence on the front of the amp, but that is in your preamp section. So that's just like your distorted section. You're adding more treble to. This adds treble to the power section of your amp, which is just a really versatile thing to have. Because a lot of times your distorted, muddy guitar sound will be muddy, and need some boosted high end. That's what this thing does. It's just a nice feature. Of course, your speaker out. Then you have this weird thing that you find in old Marshall amps. I don't know what the hell they call it, but I call it the irritating plastic thing that always falls out. And I stick it on there with some nice duct tape. If you take this duct tape off of here, you'll see that it's just this damn little plastic thing. No one really knows what it is, but it just, if you pull it out, the amp will not work. It's like a key, and it sucks. So I tape it here, and if you look down on my other amp, which you're not going to be able to look at now, but on the other amp I had a feature put in there that's like a knob to get rid of this irritating thing. Next to that is just a plug they stuck in the back of the amp. This was done before John Suhr even got to this amp. Somebody modded it and stuck a plug in the back, which is a wonderful feature to have, because I can plug any of my effects into here, any tuner, whatever you want. It's a nice three-prong plug in the back of the amp. And then the interesting thing about this head is the power to it is actually a refrigerator cable. If I unplug it here, you can see it's a refrigerator cable, and it's backwards. It's completely backwards from how any other amp should be, and I don't know why they did this, and it has nothing to do with the sound, you know, like it doesn't change the sound at all. It's just something weird that some guy did to my amp. Just a couple things about Marshall amps. You know, to get that real chunky rock sound, most of the greatest guitar players ever used Marshall amps. And there's some things you got to know about Marshalls. You know, Marshalls are built in a very solid way. You know, Marshalls should last forever, as long as you do a couple of basic things. Make sure that they're biased correctly, and you just take it into the shop and say, look, I want you to bias this amp. That means that the amp is running, you know, perfectly, and there's not something that's irritating it in any way when you plug into it. That's my understanding of it. It's very basic, and someone could yell at me, you know, anytime for that. But make sure that it's biased correctly. Make sure that the tubes are in good shape. A lot of times if you're hearing some weird noise out of your Marshall, you know, like some weird noise or anything that's going wrong, you can look at the tubes when they're lit up, and you can see if there's a problem, because one of them might be, you know, really hot, like lit up more than the other ones. You know that's a tube problem. You know, just every 6 months, change your tubes in there and have it rebiased, and you wouldn't believe the sound, the difference. If you're having a problem with your amp, chances are you just need to either retube it or have it rebiased, because these things last forever. You know, there's nothing that really can go wrong except for the tubes and rebiasing. Okay, let's talk about the cabinet that I'm using. I use Mesa Boogie cabinets. I like them better than Marshall cabs. Sometimes you can find like an old Marshall cab that has a really special sound and is really great. But for the most part, if you're going to buy something new, I suggest the Mesa Boogie 412 with 30-watt speakers in it. That's what I got here. 25-watt greenbacks are good too, but you know, they're just a little bit not as ballsy sounding. I know I've used ballsy in like every single section we've done here, but ballsy pretty much explains what I like about guitar sounds. Anyway, I use this cabinet because it's bigger than a Marshall cabinet too. It's bigger and ballsier. But here's another thing. I mark the place that I like to put my microphone on the speaker by, you know, here's the mic goes right there, like that's the outline of where it goes. Here's the latitude, here's the longitude, boink, it goes right there. And pretty much that place is, if you look at the speaker kind of goes around like this. It's around in this area. And if the end of the speaker is right here, I go between the cone and the end of the speaker, and I go kind of like right there. You know, so it's like here's the cone and here's the end of the speaker. If you moved it over to here, to the end of the speaker, it would be really low-endy, like too much low end, way too much low end. If you moved it right on top of the cone, there would be way too much mid. So you just kind of put it in between the cone and the end of the speaker, and you'll find the best tone. Use a 57, that's what I use. I got one right here. I can't take it out, but you know, 57, here it is, 57, you know, use a 57, that's what I use. I mean, you know, there's other mics that are good to use, but that's what I use, and I like it. Okay, we're back here. I've recorded a song just for this video. It doesn't have a name or anything. It's a pretty old school song, so I might call it old school, I don't know. But I'm just going to play you a little bit of the rhythm here so you can kind of see how I record. I have a drum machine here, and I just started with the drums, and then I'm going to play this little rhythm figure for you. Solo figure that I'm doing over that. Then I will play you right here. Okay, we're going to try the song now, the whole song. There's a little hook line that I wrote that's kind of, well, I didn't write it. I don't know, there's a little hook line. It's pretty cool because it's octaves that you just do, it's just like playing a bar chord, but you just play on the G string and the A string. And it slides all over the place, so it's kind of challenging to do this because you can never get it right. Perfect anyway, I'll try. Here we go. Okay, so you probably saw when I was playing that solo, I just completely lost all control and didn't know even where I was, basically. It's what happens when I'm soloing. You know, you're trying to make up melodies, and you know, you're exerting a lot of mental effort, and it's really easy to just go, I'm done, you know. And that's exactly what happened there. So luckily, we have technology on our side. And that is that's a good thing when your technology has a foot pedal, because then you can punch in. We like to call in the business. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fashion a little solo here. I'm going to record it, and let's see how long I can go before I screw up. Okay, here we go. I'm pressing record and play. So now I'm a little bit out of breath because that was a little jamming. I can just take it from there, which is just a great thing. And that's generally how I record solos. Just kind of go until I have nothing to give, and then I take a little breather and do maybe the second half, you know. And you can listen back to the solo you just did. And there it is. don't like it, so I would do it again. But thank you. Okay, like I said, there's not going to be a lot of technique on this video, but I did want to I wanted to get this in on camera here. I guess I started playing guitar when I was 13 on an acoustic guitar, which is probably a good idea to learn on acoustic. And then I saw Kiss and realized that I didn't really want to play acoustic. So I started learning electric guitar, and someone showed me at a local local music store. I got this mic on here. That's better. Someone showed me this one lick that changed my life, and it's just an old Chuck Berry lick, and you may already know it. You know, and you might think that it won't pertain to whatever style of music you're playing, but it's really helped me a lot in all of my soloing. And so it's just this lick. You're in A on the 5th fret, you bar the E string and the B string on the 5th fret, and you play this old Chuck Berry lick. And when you bend on this G string, you're bending this note up to that note. And the reason I like that lick is because after you learn that, you can add this into it. This little hammer-on pull-off kind of deal. I'm sure you know how to do that. Basically anyone knows how to do that. So you just add that. And so once you know that, you can add all kinds of other notes. You know, it's all based around that. So there you go. Okay, here's another one in A that just another cool lick that I like. On your 5th fret again. If you're in the A pentatonic, you bar the B and the E string again, just like our lick. And the first one is a hammer-on the 8th fret. So you start with that, and then the second half of it is, so it's, and you can hammer almost the whole thing. I only pick like, I'm just picking. Not picking every note at all, but you can play it so fast. It just really flows. And of course you can do it in any key. In E, I like that lick. So that's good. I did the tapping thing already on my first video. You know, there's not really much more to tell on the tapping thing. I did it all in my first video, so I'm not going to go there in this video. I want to talk a little bit about vibrato. A lot of players have some pretty heavy vibrato, and you know that it's just that it's a lot of times it's too you know it's just too much. A lot of times vibrato just needs to be just as subtle as possible, and you can do it with your whammy bar or just, you know, with your finger. But if you're holding out a note, it's not very, you know, it's not, I can't even do how a lot of these other guys do it, you know. It's like, it's kind of scary. It's not supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be very subtle, you know. So I've got a little tune here, and all it is just my chord keyboard. Just one of the patches in my keyboard has all these sounds in it. There's no overdubs or anything. It's just a great keyboard to jam along with my chord karma. Let's see how it works. Of B, this is when you start out solo, especially over something like this, you don't want to start it playing fast, you know? So there was all kinds of vibrato on that, all different kinds, and you could see basically, you know, my vibrato style. And I hope we learned something today. Okay, I thought I'd show you how I record stuff. Basically, you know, what kind of gear I use. A lot of people have Pro Tools or you know, a computer system to record their stuff, and it actually is a much better way of recording, you know, to have something like that, just because the editing is so great. It's so much easier, you know, to have a really good computer program like eMagic or Pro Tools. When I had to make my record, I didn't have a lot of time, so I knew that I was going to cut the guitars at home to save myself a lot of money. So I bought something that I could learn really fast, because I already had a pretty good understanding of recording with a mixer, you know, like a mixing board, and, you know, like with a hands-on experience. It's something you don't really get with Pro Tools, and I knew I could learn this really fast. And this is a Yamaha hard disk recorder, and you can, there's, you know, every company makes a hard disk recorder. I like this one because it's got a CD burner. You can burn your CD, and I like it because it has faders. I need faders when I'm mixing stuff. And it was real easy to learn. So that's why I went in this route. One of these days I'll probably sell it and get a computer thing like everyone else. Something I wanted to explain was that it's pretty important to have a preamp for your microphone, so that your mic goes into a nice preamp before it goes into your recorder. So what I've got over here is two mic preamps. I have the DBX, which is just, it's about a $500, you know, mic preamp. It's got tubes in there. It just makes it sound fatter. Makes your guitar sound a lot fatter. This is a Focusrite preamp, and it's it's a little more than twice as expensive. And I use that for my vocal mic, which is a Neumann. And I have some effects here. There's actually effects inside this thing that are really good, so I don't really use these that much. But I've got a tuner that I run in line, and you know, I've got a cassette player, DAT machine, CD player. You need all those three things. And believe it or not, I use a guitar power amp to power my rig, you know, my recording gear, my Tannoy speakers. And I just don't know why I haven't gotten a real power amp. It just, this one sounds pretty good, so I've just been using it. And I have an ADAT which hooks up through a digital cable. It hooks up to my Yamaha, so I can run them both together and have 24 tracks instead of just 16. And also I like having an ADAT around because I do a lot of projects where people just send me the tape and I can play on it and send it back to them. It's also good to have a good drum machine, and I have the Akai MPC 2000, which you can't see right now, but it's over there. And it's a, it's a sampling drum machine, and right now it's just got my bass sound in it. But you can buy drum sounds on a CD at a drum store and just load them into here, at a music store. And I just put some like a plate snare or snare plate, whatever it is. Here it is, snare plate on my Lexicon, and then maybe a long reverb, and I compress the snare a little bit, so it kind of has that big room sound, and all my toms are real toms and real cymbals because they're samples. So it's nice to have a nice little sampling drum machine. They're more expensive, but I used to do all my demos on just like a little Alesis SR16, which works great too. It's easy and it sounds good. But it's nice to have your kick and snare on separate channels. This way you can process them, with reverb and compress them. It's just nice to have them on their own channels. But you don't want to use, 8 channels for drums. So what I do is I use 4 channels for drums. On 1 and 2, I do the cymbals and the toms, and on 3 and 4, I do the kick on 3 and the snare on 4. And if you only have a 4-track, then you're screwed. Hey, I got a little burb on there. Was on the road with Alice Cooper, and this guy comes up. He's totally made up like one of those goth guys, what those goth people look like. And he looked like he might have really been a nerd, like in school, and then found this goth thing and pierced everything. He looked really wild, but he had a voice that was so interesting and funny. And I love to do it because it's a voice from an old cartoon, and he sounded just like this guy. He said to me,
"Yeah, how you doing? You're Reb Beach, right? Yeah, I wanted to ask you how you felt about playing the song 17 with Winger, and then playing the song 18 with Alice Cooper. How do you feel about the dichotomy between these two songs? And also, do you plan on writing a song called 19 in your next band?"
Really said this to me, and with that voice, man, I'll never forget that. Okay. I've just broken a string. I broke the B string, and a lot of times when you break a string with a Floyd Rose, you can just pull the string down. What I'm going to do is undo our thing here, and you can unwind the string, like so, and you can stick the end of the string back in to the saddle. This way you don't have to go digging around looking for a new string, You cut off any weirdness, which we don't see any weirdness here. The weirdness is still stuck in there. So, we pull out weirdness. And you can just plop the string right back in here like so. I hand tighten it, and then go like this and do the major tighten, but only snug. We only need to be snug. And next thing you know, you've changed the string in a matter of seconds. Impress your friends. And you do the same stretch thing that we learned before. Just go like this. I can feel that the string is warm, so it's going a little flat. Do it again. Here. But I bet you that string will come up. Hear it coming up? There you go. Good, so that's all set. And we had our little Floyd conversation already. Just snug. There you go. Alright. Now in order to do that, you've got to put plenty of wraps on your string when you change strings, when you put your new strings on. And I tell you, there's one thing I wanted to say about putting strings on. It was something we're going to have to shoot in a second. Here. Ready? I'm not ready. I'm going to put another E string. Okay. Here's the ball end of the string. I've stuck the string in backwards through the hole there in the tuning peg. We've tightened it up here on the bridge. And here's what I do. You always want to keep pressure on the string when you're wrapping it. So I grab one end, I grab the ball end, and I always keep it under the string tree. I leave about this much height here. It just always kind of feels like this. And look to make sure that everything's cool. There's an old string in here, which is not good. Okay, that's gone. Just back under our string tree. Alright, and then you begin to wind. Now make sure that your string is going under itself, not over itself. You want it to go under. Okay? You want these wraps to be nice and coiled looking, you know? Just a nice wrap on there. And this way you can do that pull down thing that I may or may have not showed you yet. Okay, see, we're getting a nice wrap on there. The string is coming in underneath the wrap before it, you know. This way you have nice clean wraps. Do your stretch. You know, I'm so happy I bought this video of Reb Beach to watch him change strings for an hour. Hey, I'm sorry, you know. I think this is important. I see all these people that are out of tune and like their strings are all wrapped all weird. This will make you a better player. Alright. Little house back on. You probably don't need this stuff. I did what I wanted to do. I did. So that's good. Hey, sometimes if you know, get this little string hanging off here and you don't have any clippers on you, all you need to do is make a kink in the string and pull it. Just a stupid little thing, really. This is called my tuning chord, and I don't know what kind of chord it is. It's got a 9 in there, I know that. That's the chord. I just bar this whole thing, play kind of a D shape right there on the 4th fret. And you can actually move it around too. Not bad. Okay, here's something. After we paused for this station identification. Okay, I thought maybe on my video I would just play some licks, just show you some of my favorite licks. Okay, so here we are in A. A is rock and roll. And there's A pentatonic, which we all know. Pentatonic from, you know, pent meaning the Latin for 5 notes out of the major scale. And that's all I know. You know? Anyway, So when you're jamming an A, everybody's jamming here. Right? So here's a cool lick. It's an old Frank Marino lick. Licks that are cool are always cool because it does something that you wouldn't think to normally do, you know? Like this note is always a weird note to play, you know? So like whenever there's a lick with that note in it, for some reason it's always cool. You know, it's the saddest of all keys. That's a good one. See, those are your good bendy notes, you know? Like, you know, I have some students that are kind of more beginners, and they're always asking me about bending, you know. You want to bend this note, and this note, and this note. There's that. What's another good lick? Another good lick, I love this one. It's real easy to play fast. It's just a hammer on. And then you gotta pick that. Can you see this, Dan? You can see this, alright? You know, it's just all I'm picking is this is a hammer on it right here. And if you can skip notes, sometimes it's cool. Here's a good one. Tom Kiefer from Cinderella, like this one. This one. That's a good one. All you do is you bend the note, right? You know this kind of A place right here, you know? I don't know how to explain it. It just kind of does that boo thing, you know? You bend it and then you pluck the string, the E string, and then you mute it. And when you mute it, all you hear is the other string. So it sounds like you're actually playing that other string and you're not. And you can like let it go down a little, so it's dee 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 dee. You know, it's real cool. I like doing that. What's another one? You know this one. Like that. Like doing that. I don't know why, I just like doing that. Here's a cool thing about scales. You know that pentatonic, A pentatonic? Okay, sometimes you can add like minor notes in there. I think it's called Dorian. Right? That would be, you know, you can see what I'm doing here on the 4th fret instead of, you know, the normal pentatonic. I do this this B right here on the G string. Okay. It's kind of like a minor thing going on. Well, if you move that up a whole step, you've got mixolydian. If you move it up another whole step, you got something that you'll probably never use, but boy is it fun, Lydian. Lovely, that's total, you know, I am Joe Satriani today. Using the whammy. And thank you. So I'm learning songs for the Winger tour, and you know, after being in Alice Cooper and Dokken, it's so interesting to go back to Winger and see how different it is from those two bands, and man, oh man, it's just lots of just singing and playing, you know. And I just started to learn Rainbow in the Rose last night, and it was just like, bummer, you know, like, oh my God, I have to learn, like, it's like, while you sing, you know, like, Rainbow, you know, forget it. So I'm just, you know, I'm gonna try here. Here's the solo, and the solo's a little bitch. It's like not easy, you know. I just tried it last night. What is this? But you gotta sing too, like I sing this. When I was like 20. Oh God. Okay, I thought I'd try and play Erase a Slate for you. You can get that on the DVD, the Dokken Live from the Sun CD or DVD rather, and that's got a lot of, you know, if you want to see how I played all of the Dokken stuff, it's actually a really good DVD. And you might be wondering why I'm sitting here with a baby Dean. I've always thought that the little red baby Dean was cool. Like I like red Explorers. I like Explorers, and I like baby anything. And I've always liked Sammy Hagar, and he plays a little red guitar. It just looks cool, I think. And I mentioned that at a clinic when I saw this guitar, and they liked my clinic so much that they gave it to me. And it's kind of just a nice little guitar. I actually used it playing Junkyard Dog live on the Pool tour. And I might use it on this tour. Anyway, I'm going to take a stab at Erase a Slate. And I also have this guitar because it's tuned to normal E, which, you know, Dokken always played an E, and Winger is always an E flat. E flat's cooler. All right, let's try it. Oh yeah. I still have my echo here. It's gonna have echo there. Oh, here it is, sorry. That was my idea. I said, Dawn, sing like you did on Under Lock and Key, man. Just do that. Yeah! Love that stuff, you know? And he did. He did a really good job. Okay, so that's about it. I really want to thank you for getting the video, and I hope you liked it. Obviously, it's just me in my house, you know? It's like a private lesson. When I have students, they come here, and this is basically what I show them. So if you have any other questions, you can email me at rebbeach.com, or you can post on my forum, and people that ask questions there, I always try to respond, you know, within a few weeks to, especially guitar questions, because they're the easiest for me, you know, and there's no issues. But listen, thanks a lot for getting the tape, and I hope that you got something out of it. I certainly did. And if you have other questions, like I said, do them on the forum, and I'll maybe make another video. Thanks. Okay, I'm just going to start talking about guitar here. You'd probably like that, wouldn't you? Hi, we're back. And I've completely forgotten what it is. I hope you'll bear with me. And I can't plug this in. Should I tell my story about Marshalls in the studio? When I did my first session at Atlantic Studios, my first big time session, I had no idea. Wait, we did that already. We got that already.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cut. Hi, we're back. You're screwed. Okay. I'll take a sip of beer.
I've been searching for an angel in white. I've been waiting for a woman who's a little bold. I can see her, but she's nowhere in sight. Loneliness will find you in between the wrong and the right. Coming right behind you, swear I'm gonna find you one of these nights.
It's gonna have echo there. Ah, what a drag. Here's the. Whoa, shit. That's bad.